All right, Nick, let's talk about the Florida Gators. Go on down to Gainesville, see what's going on because things seem grim at first a few days ago, Nick. But I think things for the Florida Gators have turned around drastically in the last couple days over the weekend, and it is looking nothing but up for the Gators. I think there's a very special story we're going to get into today where everyone has to be excited about it.
Miles, I agree with you 100%. I don't know if a team has turned a weekend around with so many massive, huge wins than what Florida did over the weekend in a long time. A heck of a weekend for the Gators. But before we get into that report, Florida fans got a really interesting question for you guys to answer, as always, in the comment section below. This is a team. It's one of the top blue blood programs in all of the SEC and, frankly, all of the country, which means this team is known for having some grinders, some hard workers. But in the comment section below, give us the one Florida Gator player of all time who you think was the hardest worker. And look, there's one guy, we all know his name, who had the famous speech about working hard after a disappointing defeat. If you want to throw him in there, hey, that's great. All the power to you. But if you got someone else, so maybe under the radar grinder that you think worked his butt off for the Florida Gators program, throw him in the comment section too. All right, Miles, what you got? What's the latest out of Gainesville?
Yeah, Nick, I think if you use that answer, though, it shows you're maybe not that hard of a worker. So we
There
wanted
you
the
go. I
hardest
like that.
working commenters as well. So,
I
give
like
us
it.
some interesting ones. But, Nick, talk about hard work. Well, first, we'll get into the bad and then we'll flip over to the good. Obviously, we know over the weekend, Florida lost commit Austin Simmons to Ole Miss. But it might as well be Old Miss now because Florida comes back with a vengeance and they get count them, four-star recruits, and there could be another one on the way as well, Nick. They came back so fast that I even almost forgot that Austin Simmons was going to Florida in this 2023 class. They came back so fast, Nick, that this team looks actually forever changed for the 2024 season, one of the top recruiting classes in the country now. But let's get on into the article and then we'll kind of talk about who they got and what is going on. This was from over on Fansided. It said the Gators were on absolute tear last night on the trail, recruiting trail that is, landing 3 commitments in just a few hours with a 4th looming. According to tons of committed players and current guys on the roster, the commitments of Aaron Childs, Amir Jackson, Amaris Williams, and Nasir Johnson lit a spark under the Gators and all of the fans, giving the whole program a lot of momentum as we continue through the summer, Nick. Those 4 commitments moved the Gators all the way up to having the 3rd best class in the country and a player average of a 91.4 per on 3, Nick. So that is an absolutely stunning recruiting class right there. The vibes around all of this action is that Billy Napier and the Gators still may not be done just yet. And with a few more priority targets on campus, Austin Simmons has just about become an afterthought in a matter of a few hours. Yes, the Gators lost out on a talented quarterback, Nick, but the decisions by Simmons to decommit means that the Gators staff is all in on DJ Lagway being the QB of the future. So, love that, Nick. They have a QB of the future. They can go all in on Lagway. He doesn't have to really look over his shoulder anymore. He feels the confidence to go out there and play. But also, we know they got 4 top-tier 4-star recruits for the coming season. I think this is really, really incredible. But before I get into any of this, Nick, I want to ask you, what do you think about these guys coming to Florida? And not really what they bring, but what do you think about the overall message that this means for the Gators?
Yeah, so it's important to provide a little context here is that this weekend was an official visit weekend for a lot of Florida Gators recruits, and all 4 of these guys were visiting Gainesville, their official visits. This was according to both 24/7 Sports and Rivals.com. All 4 of these guys took their official visits to Gainesville this past weekend. The fact that they all committed directly after an official visit tells me that the Florida Gators program, in terms of getting people to sign on the line, that is done, because that's what really matters. Anybody can get these recruits in, especially if you're blue blood, but you got to be able to get them to commit. And that's a credit to Napier and the entire recruiting department with the Florida Gators getting these top flight guys to commit right after a recruiting weekend. It's not easy to do, right? A lot of these recruits love going on a bunch of official visits. They get wined and dined. It's a good old time. I went on a few official visits back in my day. Again, much smaller program than this, but it is a good time. It's a fun environment. I highly recommend anyone has a chance to do it. Any up and comers listening to this, take all the official visits you want. But these 4 guys right here, they went to Gainesville for their officials, and we don't want to go anywhere else. This is where we want to go. And that's a credit to what Florida has done in the recruiting pipeline. But here's the part that really jumps out at me. Normally, when you get a batch of guys to commit like this, it's usually guys that, are from the same city or from the same school or something local. Like they have a bunch of connections. They've already been talking and working together for a long period of time. You normally don't get a bunch of guys to recruit like this unless there's, some sort of connection. But these four guys, my four completely different high schools, one from Maryland, one from North Carolina, and two from Georgia, right? No real connections outside of maybe some social media interactions or anything like that before this official visit weekend. These four guys come in, they see Gainesville, they see what Napier's up to, and they're like, we sign up today. We commit today together as a group. I think that's a great sign for the long-term health of the Florida Gators recruiting pipeline, because we talk about it all the time, right? Anybody can sort of get lucky one year or get unlucky, one year and have a great year. But in terms of long, sustained success and major college football, specifically the SEC, you have to have a strong recruiting pipeline. So because of this, I think it's a good sign that Florida Gators pipeline remains strong. But one thing I really loved about all four of these guys is I feel like over the past half decade or so, Florida has had the ability to bring in, a lot of top flight recruits at skill positions, at the quarterback position, running back, receiver, DB, things like that. But I feel like it's their front seven on defense and their offensive line that's really not up to par in terms of my opinion of what I expect Florida should be. But that's why I love the fact that these guys are offensive linemen, front seven, tight ends, right? You got Childs as a linebacker, front seven guy. You got Williams, defensive lineman, obviously front seven guy. Nasir Johnson, another defensive lineman. And Amir Jackson's the tight end of the group there on the offensive side. Tight end, pretty much offensive lineman, same kind of dynamic there. I love when you bring in guys as recruits that are building up the front seven, building up the offensive line, the tight end position, because that's the core of your team. Quarterback position, you have to be good, but you also have to be able to stop the run and get after the quarterback. And you also have to be able to block and win in the point of attack in the running game and protect your quarterback as well. Amir Jackson will be a receiving threat, but he's going to be in a lot of blocking opportunities as well. No matter how you look at this, Mice, both sides of the coin, in terms of a long-term recruiting pipeline of getting guys to commit, this is great news for the Florida program. But I also love the fact this isn't just skill positions anymore. This is front seven guys, tight end guys. The beef, the core of the program will remain strong because of moves like these.